Good morning. If you have your Bibles and you want to open them, we're going to be in Ephesians chapter 6 today. You can go ahead and get that ready. Last week, Miles finished up with the end of chapter 5. So today we'll be in Ephesians 6, verses 1 through 9. I went to Westville High School. I'm a local kid, grew up in the area, really haven't been out of the area too much. I went on my internship in 2007 down around Evansville, but other than that, I've been basically in central Illinois my whole life. Mr. Goodlove was my principal when I graduated school, and now I work out with him in the morning sometimes. I think a lot of the teachers that I had when I was in school would have said I was a pretty good kid. A pretty good kid. I tried to befriend kids. I didn't like it when kids got picked on or when they got made fun of. I didn't like it when kids got left out. So I think many of the people who knew me in high school would have said I was a good kid. I graduated and I went to DAC. While I was at DAC, I was a pretty quiet student. I didn't feel like a lot of the teachers really necessarily knew me, if that makes sense. I would show up to my classes. I did my work. I turned it in. I passed all my classes. I didn't really stand out. But I feel like most of them, if you were to just ask about me, they would have probably said the same thing. I was a good kid or a good student. There were so many things, though, about my life that teachers, that professors, that administrators, they really had no idea about. They didn't know. They knew the way that I presented myself to them. That's what they knew. They knew that I showed up to class, that I turned in my homework, that I treated them with respect. I treated them with respect as my teacher. Even if I didn't always agree with them, I still treated them with respect. I feel like my label, as well as the label of most kids that get to know adults on a fairly close level, is that we are good kids. How many of you would agree with that? As you get close to an adult, they think that you're a good kid. Don't get me wrong, I know that there are exceptions to the rule. Yeah, and you know who you have someone in your mind right now that's the exception. I feel like those kids, they're intentionally set out to be a rebel. Like that's what they're trying to do. They want to be the kid that has an attitude. They want to be the kid that stands out in that way. The majority, though, of teachers would say as they got to know students or as professors got to know students or administrators got to know students that they saw the good in kids. But what does that end up doing when adults see kids as good kids? What does the outcome potentially create? And here's what I think. I think that sometimes the good kids end up getting a free pass at times. I think they end up getting let off with a warning. I think we say that they just made a mistake. That's not really who they are. How many of you would agree with that? Okay. We kind of let them slide because they're a good kid. I'm not here to argue one way or another, trying to put into question a kid's character when they do something stupid, because we all do things that are stupid. But the point I want to make this morning is really a pretty simple one. We think that we know people. We think we know when kids are good kids, and when a guy is a good guy or a girl is a good girl, when a person is a good person. We think that we know because we say it all the time. They're a good person. But the truth is, most people around us, we don't really know them. That's the truth. We don't really know them. The person that we know is the person that we've been presented with. Every once in a while, when you start to spend enough time around someone, then you start to get to know other parts about them, other things that come out. It can come out because of all kinds of different reasons. What shows you a little bit about who a person really is? What kind of situations cause you to see who a person really is? Anybody want to share? What situations? What happens? Like, the one I think of the most is competition. I grew up playing sports. I grew up playing basketball, playing baseball, and in the middle of competition is when you can see who a person really is. I loved to pitch when I was growing up. And my dad was my coach most of the time. And so my dad liked to yell when I was growing up. And I didn't always enjoy it, but I loved pitching. When I got to high school, my dad still yelled, but he wasn't the coach anymore. And the coach didn't enjoy that very much, and I didn't enjoy it very much. And so sometimes I would tell my dad about it. But through competition, I would get angry, he would get angry, and we saw a little bit of who we really are come out. There's also situations that are stressful, can bring out who we really are. Situations that are stressful, or just when we're angry. When we're angry, we can get mad and we can forget about that normal wall that we have that keeps people at a distance. And we can let people in to see who we really are a little bit. As much as we'd like to say that's not who we really are, in the stressful times, when we get angry or in competition, really we're caught up in the moment. And it is the truth. The way that we react. Those moments happen because we let our guard down and we let people see who we really are. Although it might not be our normal reaction, it is the way that we think. It's what comes out when we aren't thinking. It's what comes out naturally. And again, I'm not denying that we have good kids and good people who do some really great things. But we all have kind of that dark side that we try to keep in check and we don't want other people to see. A side that we usually do a pretty good job of hiding. But here's what I want to come back around to. When we do things that are stupid, when we do things that are outside of our normal character, when we make mistakes, we let ourselves act in a way that we wish we wouldn't have, it often gets swept under the rug. And not by us. It gets swept under the rug by other people. Or it gets ignored because they don't think that's who we really are. They want to help us feel better. And so they make excuses for us. They tell us, it's all right. It's not a big deal. It wasn't that bad. I know it's okay. You were stressed. You'll be all right. I know you've got a lot going on right now. Or I probably would have done the same thing. That's not who you really are. That's not what you meant. You're a good person. You didn't do it on purpose. We've got all these excuses for people. And I know it because I've said them. We've got so many excuses that let good people get away with stuff and just move on like it never happened. And it doesn't matter. But it does matter. Those times in our life do matter. As much as we try to suppress that part of who we are and keep it in check, those moments when we do things that we're not proud of, it is a part of who we are. It's a part of who you are. And what it shows is that we are broken because it's not our natural reaction to do what's right. Our natural reaction is to act out in a way that we don't want people to see. And so what we have to do is stop making those excuses. We have to stop making those excuses that that's okay, it wasn't that big a deal, that's not who you really are, I would have done the same thing, it's okay, you got a lot on your plate, you're just stressed. We got to stop making those excuses. We got to stop making those excuses for other people. And we have to learn how to learn from our mistakes. We actually have to own them and deal with them instead of excusing them away. The ones that end up learning from their mistakes are the ones that actually end up reacting differently down the road, while others that continue to get things swept under the rug continue to act the same way and continue to hope that they're swept under the rug until one day they won't be. I'll go back to myself real quick as the example. While I was a senior in high school, I played basketball at Westville. My coach and I, we got along pretty well. He was the dean of students as well as the basketball coach. And because I was a good kid, I spent 1 hour, one period every other day in his office where I got to help him out. I got to be kind of his assistant, him and his secretary, doing whatever they needed me to do. And I feel like he was probably one of the people at the school who probably knew me the best, but even still, again, he didn't really know me. There were so many things that I struggled with, that I dealt with, that nobody at school knew about. How many of you had things as you were growing up that you were dealing with, that you were struggling with, and you never told anyone? Yeah. You never, not only did you not let other people just know about it, you didn't tell your best friend what was really going on. You didn't tell your parents what was going on. You just tried to deal with it because you felt like if I start telling people what's really going on in my life, I'm not going to be the good kid. They're going to actually see through me. And so I was supposed to be the good kid that went to this office and helped once every couple days doing things that other kids weren't allowed to do because I was the good kid and I couldn't talk about stuff. I couldn't share what was really going on. As a teenager in a small school, trying to follow Christ's way versus trying to follow my own way, or the way that I felt like all the other students lived, was hard. I had kids that made my walk with Christ more difficult. And that was, sometimes it seemed like that was their goal. But being honest, those kids, because they didn't just take my mistakes and sweep them under a rug, but call them out, they made me a better person. Those kids are the ones that made me stronger. They challenged me to actually live it instead of just claim it. Those were the kids that forced me not to have two different lives. We come in, and we've talked about this for a long time now in the church, but we come in and it's hard not to have kind of the sacred box over here and the secular box over here where we live our lives in two different ways. We've got church, and as a kid, we've got youth group, and we've got prayer time, and we've got Bible study. We've got all this stuff over here. Even as adults, we've got our stuff over here in the sacred box. We're here this morning. That's part of the sacred part. We'll go to Bible study on Wednesday night, part of the sacred part. We'll go to a meeting with some of our friends, and we'll talk about the Bible, or we'll pray, and it's part of the sacred part, and I'm doing this. But then I'll turn around and I'll go to work. And that's secular. I'm a little different there. I don't have to be the same that I am here and here because I'm not with the same people. I'm not expected to do the same things. They don't really know my life. I've got two different lives going on. But the people when I was in school that called me out kind of forced me to take the school, the secular part, and make it the sacred part. Make it real. Make it not just another compartment in my life. As people, we need to be called out. As people, we need to be called out. We need to be told, not necessarily in this language, but we need to be told that we messed up, that we screwed up, that we should not have done that. Now, it can be done in a loving and nice way, but we need to be told. We need to learn from our mistakes instead of trying to get rid of them like they never happened. Because they're a big deal, and it's not okay. Even Ava and Ella, okay, I've got a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. They know right from wrong. They absolutely know right from wrong. And you know how you know that? Because when they do something, at least Ava, when she does something wrong, she runs away. She won't even let me talk to her about it. She's gone. They push the limits. They're testing their boundaries. But they can learn and they can be held accountable for at a certain extent. They're 6 and 4, but they can still learn. On Wednesday nights, we've been talking about generations, from traditionalists How many people are traditionalists? If you know that that's your generation, I can't remember what the year is, but it's the older people of our church. So what is it? 1946 and older. Born before 1946, you're the traditionalists. See, some of you already learned something today. All that other stuff, you didn't learn a thing, but now you've learned something. We've got traditionalists, we've got baby boomers, we've got Gen X, which Brian talks about all the time, that he's a Gen Xer because they were the forgotten generation. They didn't know what to call them, so just put an X next to it. And you've got millennials, which is what I'm part of, and sometimes millennials aren't proud of that. And you've got Generation Z now. It's the youngest generation in the church. You've got all these different generations, and we're talking about that on Wednesday nights. And one thing millennials are known for is the fact that many of us are seen as being entitled. The entitlement generation, as some people have called it. People think that millennials think they deserve everything. Whatever they want, they have earned it without doing anything. They deserve it. Gen X, baby boomers, traditionalists, you know the world really doesn't owe you anything. You have to earn what you get. But for some reason, there's a portion of millennials who see the world as owing them something. And a lot of times, the millennials have been just looked down upon by other generations because of it. I went to the Global Leadership Summit Thursday and Friday out at Second Church. It was simulcast or live streamed to Second Church from Willow Creek up in Chicago. And one of the guys that spoke for the Global Leadership Summit spoke about generations. There was all kinds of different speakers that talked about the things where they're more of an expert than others. One of them was this guy that talked about generations. And through the research of his company, they determined that entitlement is a learned behavior. Entitlement is a learned behavior. So what does that mean for millennials that feel entitled? They learned it somewhere. They didn't just grow up and all of a sudden feel like the world should give them everything. They learned it through growing up. And who are the millennials' parents? Baby boomers. So it's your fault. One of the things that Jason said, this guy that was the expert on generations, he said the biggest thing that impacts one generation to the next is the way that they're parented. Maybe some of us do feel like we deserve everything, but it came from somewhere. We were taught that somewhere along the line, that maybe it wasn't done on purpose, not directly. Someone didn't sit us down and say, you deserve everything that you want. But we were taught that. And it came from our parents, and it came from our grandparents. It came from the people that were influential in our lives as we grew up. They wanted us to have a better life than they had. I mean, I've heard it my whole life. Parents want their kids to have a better life than they did. Unfortunately, as I feel like I've gotten older, a lot of times that better life is seen as more stuff. And more stuff and more stuff and more stuff. And it's not going to get any better with Gen Z, because we have baby boomers that are grandparents now until you keep buying them stuff. And you know what I finally said is keep the stuff at your house because I don't want it. We don't need more stuff. What we need to do is we need to read Ephesians 6. We need to realize that we're called to a whole lot more as parents and grandparents than making our kids and grandkids happy by buying them stuff. Happiness kind of sucks. We can be happy in a given moment, and that happiness can leave us just as quickly as it came. Happiness kind of sucks. Just look at a kid who's opening their birthday presents. In a moment, they're the happiest kid in the world because they got a toy or a game, It's the best thing in the world, and they don't want to let it go, and they are so happy. They want to open it right now, and they want to play with it, right? They do not want to let it go. But what happens? For one thing, if they're opening presents in the middle of a birthday party, the parent makes them put it away and open something new, and so they're ticked anyway. But the minute they open it, they play with it for less than 5 minutes, and then they're done with it, and they don't care about it anymore. Most things, not all. Happiness comes and goes in moments. Kids go from being excited because it's their birthday, to happy because of a present, because of a gift, to ticked because they have to open another gift that's not the one that they had before, to happy again with a new gift, to ticked because they got to put that one away, to happy again with a new gift, to ticked because they got to put that one away. Happy, sad, happy, sad. As adults, we're supposed to be the ones that teach our kids. Ephesians 6 tells us we're supposed to be teaching our kids how to obey and honor us as parents, as grandparents. We're to be leading them, giving them the example to follow of what it means to follow Christ. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Unfortunately, instead of showing them something different, instead of showing them what it means to follow Christ, we end up being the same birthday example of happiness just in our own way as adults. At least I do. We don't have necessarily birthday parties. I don't have birthday parties the way that we do for our kids, for Ava and Ella. But I have my own money now. I can buy my own gifts. I reason with myself. I negotiate why it's okay to buy this or to buy that. And I go back and forth till I decide, yep, I really need that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to buy it. As a millennial, after I've negotiated long enough, I feel like it's okay to make the purchase. I get on Amazon and I click and I bought it. It'll be here in 2 days. Gen Xers, I know, well, Brian just walked out for a second, but I know we're at the church. Brian and I, we both use Amazon all the time. Buy it, and it'll be here in 2 days. There's sometimes now you can get stuff in 1 day with Amazon Prime, and that's like a whole new thing. 1 day. I don't have to wait 2 days. And the thing is, for me, it's different than somebody that's a little older than me. You used to negotiate whether or not you're going to buy something at home. And then you had to get in your car, you had to go to the store, and you had to actually put it in the cart, take it to the register, and pay for it. I just got to click one time. So in that process, you used to be able to decide, no, I really don't need this. I really need this and this and this and this ahead of what I really want. And now we buy stuff so quick. One negotiation, one time deciding that we need it, and it's going to be there in 2 days. We get excited. We get the Amazon package in the mail, and it's like our birthday. We open it up, and we're happy for a little bit. That thing makes us happy. That material thing. I hate to admit it, but I have a perfect example. I might have even mentioned this in a sermon. It might have been the last sermon that I had, which is really bad because I mentioned it last time like I didn't need it, and since then I've negotiated and I bought it anyway. I like to go work out, and going to work out, I wanted to know about how many calories I was burning in a workout, and so I wanted a fitness tracker. And there's all kinds of fitness trackers out there. I looked online, I read reviews, I did my research, I looked on Amazon at all the different prices, I did all this stuff. And the bad thing about Amazon is when you look at them on Amazon, it puts them in your recently viewed list. So the next time you go to Amazon, they're right there in front of you saying, don't you want to buy this still? So a few years ago, I bought one. I bought myself one, I bought Megan one. We were working out together, and I thought this would be nice for her. And she doesn't wear it. So it sits in our house. But I had bought it, and I had been wearing it. And I don't remember when this exactly happened, but I started getting upset because I would be working out, and I would look down at my fitness tracker, and it calculates my heart rate, and because of the heart rate, determines how many calories I'm burning. And I look down in the middle of a workout. I'm sweating all over the place. I can feel my heart pounding. In the middle of a workout, it's like your heart rate's 53. If anybody knows anything about heart rate, if it was 53, I better be asleep. I don't even know if it's that low then. So I would get mad. And Megan would tell you, I would get mad in the middle of my workout, not because of how hard the workout was, but because my watch wasn't working. And so in the middle of the workout, I would stop what I was doing, and I would turn off my watch and turn it back on. And for some reason, I thought if I hit the thing, it would start working, right? And I would turn it back on, and I would hit it, and I would adjust it on my wrist, and I would wipe my wrist off and try to get the sweat away. And I'd look back, and it's like, oh, you're right, it wasn't 53, it was 63. Nope, that's still not right. I'm not any happier. So after a while, Meg said, just get another watch. And if you know me, I've got my iPad up here, and I've got my iMac in my office, and I've got another tablet in there, and I've got my iPhone. I'm like, well, I've always wanted an Apple Watch. I already know how much they cost, so now I have to negotiate. Do I really need this? And this is the example that I used last time, that I didn't really need it. But now my watch is broken, so now I need it. And so you see on my right arm is my new Apple Watch. But it's on my right arm. It's not on my left arm. I'll never forget, I bought my Apple Watch, and it was coming 2 days later from Amazon. And it was a Friday when it was supposed to be here. And I waited in my office. I did not leave the building even for lunch. I was like, I can't wait for my Apple Watch. And then it came to where it was getting close to the time I needed to leave for the day, and I still had to go to Meijer to pay for the donuts for Sunday morning. I thought, watch, I'm going to leave, and they're going to try to come while I'm at Meijer. And sure enough, that's what they did. But thankfully, Chelsea was here. And so while I'm at Meijer, Chelsea sends me a text message, you got a package. And I'm like, yes, I can go back and pick up my watch. And so I come back, and I get my watch, and I open it, and I'm getting it all set up. And if you know, like you've got apps you can download, and it syncs up with your phone, and does all this stuff. So I really wasn't able to get it ready till Friday night. And Friday night, I'm sitting at home on the couch. I've got it on, and I'm like, Megan, give me your phone. I'm going to text myself just so I can see what it looks like on my watch. And so I text myself, and it doesn't pop up. And I'm like, what's going on? Why isn't this working? I just spent all this money on this watch that I really, really need, and now it doesn't work right. My Garmin worked. It would at least show me my text message. So I text myself like 20 times, and it still's not working. And I'm getting it on my phone. I'm like, why is it not coming on the watch? I'm looking through the settings, trying to look online, search everywhere. Why might my watch not work? Why might it not work? Can't figure it out. I take my watch, and I push it on my wrist to see if, like, maybe I'm pushing a button or something. Like, I just rearrange it on my wrist a little bit. Send another text message, and it popped up. And there was that happy moment. I was happy. My watch worked. And I put it back where I wanted it on my wrist. And guess what it did? It didn't work again. Moved it back up. Oh, it works. Moved it back. Doesn't work again. If you guys know anything about fitness trackers, they use an infrared sensor. And I knew about these because my Garmin, the infrared sensor, is what allows it to test your heart rate, to figure it out. The infrared sensor in my Apple Watch, I was like, it can't be broken. I just bought it. So I put it on my right wrist, and it worked. I moved it around, it worked again, moved it around, it worked again. I was like, what in the world is going on with my watch? What's wrong with my left arm? What's the difference between my left arm and my right arm? Your infrared sensor can't see you through a tattoo. So you know what that means? I got to wear my watch on my right arm now. And that doesn't seem like a big deal, but it feels really weird. You know what else that means? The Garmin that I replaced isn't broken. My whole negotiation with myself was a big lie. I own an Apple Watch now. And it made me happy for about 10 seconds until I had to put it on the other wrist. People are all like, well, can't Apple figure something out to make it work? I'm like, no, it doesn't work through a tattoo. Megan even said, well, why don't you send it back? I don't want to send it back. I want my Apple Watch. The moment I realized all this, my happiness, what I thought was going to make me so happy, even though it worked now, it was gone. Not only is happiness momentary and dependent on each little thing that happens in our lives, happiness is completely based upon me. Happiness is selfishness a lot of times. It's what I feel in any moment. And so we're teaching our kids to live based upon selfishness, self-centeredness, happiness. Let's be honest, most of the time when we were kids, we wanted to be happy. Our parents wanted us to be happy. But it's not the most important thing in life to be happy. The most important thing in life, it's not myself. We have to stop promoting self-centeredness. It's not wrong to want our kids to be happy, but we have to rearrange our priority list. So what should be at the top of our priority list? What should be at the top of our priority list? Okay. Honoring God with our lives should be at the top of our priority list. Whether we're a child, whether we're a parent, doesn't matter. Go ahead and open your Bibles to Ephesians chapter 6. Let's read what Paul wrote to the church in Ephesus about parenting. Ephesians chapter 6. Verses 1 through 9, it says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you and you may enjoy long life on the earth. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. Slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear and with sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ. Obey them not only to win their favor when their eye is on you, but like slaves of Christ, doing the will of God from your heart. Serve wholeheartedly as if you were serving the Lord, not men, because you know that the Lord will reward everyone for whatever good he does, whether he is slave or free. And masters, treat your slaves in the same way. Do not threaten them, since you know that he who is both their master and yours is in heaven, and there is no favoritism with him." That's the NIV that I just read. This right here is the Message, and I want to take a second and read it according to Eugene Peterson's paraphrase, just so you can hear it in a little bit of a different way. It says, "Children, do what your parents tell you. This is the only right. Honor your father and mother. It's the first commandment that has a promise attached to it, namely, so you will live well and have a long life. Fathers, don't exasperate your children by coming down hard on them. Take them by the hand and lead them in the way of the master. Servants, respectfully obey your earthly masters, but always with an eye to obeying the real master, Christ. Don't just do what you have to do to get by, but work heartily as Christ's servant, doing what God wants you to do. And work with a smile on your face, always keeping in mind that no matter who happens to be giving the orders, you're really serving God. Good work will get good pay from the master, regardless of whether you're a slave or free. Masters, it's the same with you. No abuse, please, and no threats. You and your servants are both under the same master in heaven. He makes no distinction between you and them." These two relationships are being explained right here after Paul finishes wives and husbands that Miles talked about last week, how we're supposed to treat one another. I don't think it's a coincidence that they come right after. Paul knows that we have a difficult time not separating our lives into compartments. We have a difficult time not putting things in a sacred and secular basket. We put our church attendance, prayer time, Bible reading, all that spent in the sacred. Then we put that off to the side, and we think we're doing pretty good. Then we have our job as husband, as a wife. We have our job as a mother or a father, and we have our job itself as an employee or as an employer in our secular box, and we'll lead that part how we see fit. But Paul's telling us here, whatever you're doing, it all goes in the same box. All relationships, the way that we handle them, are sacred because they come from God. Every relationship comes from God. God's the one that has given us those people in our lives, and we need to treat them as though they are sacred. The relationships are sacred because not only did God give us our spouse, he entrusted us to care for our spouse. God gave us our children to raise them, to influence them, to teach them. He chose us. He chose us, you as an individual, to be that parent for that child. No one else on earth has the same influence on that child as you do. As a child, even though, I'm going to say this, we are all children. We all have parents. As a child, I'm talking about us. We have specific parents that we're supposed to be not only obeying as kids, but honoring as adults. We have a life to honor them with. Not just because it's the right thing to do, but because God specifically gave us those parents, that relationship. He calls us to continue to honor them. And it makes no difference, this is hard, but it makes no difference what your parents have done. It makes no difference the life that they've lived. You can still honor them with your life. And that's what God's calling us to do. It doesn't matter if your parent is the biggest hypocrite out there. It doesn't matter if they're the most selfish person that you know. They could be what the world sees as the worst of the worst. But we can still live a life that honors them by being who God has called us to be, by honoring God. As employees, God gave us our jobs. And he expects us to do that job to the best of our ability, whether the people around us are doing that or not. Because we're supposed to be different. We're supposed to be set apart from the world. He expects us to be the example for other employees. Because we work for the king, we don't work for the boss. For those of us that are business owners, for those of you, because I'm not one, for those of you that are business owners, you're supposed to see your employees as valuable. You're supposed to see the job that they do as valuable. The person that they are as valuable. You have to continually remind yourself, even though you might not be the exact one signing the paychecks, but if you have people under you, that person under you is a person. They are a person. It's somebody with a story, trying to provide for their family the same way that you're trying to provide for yours. They deserve respect and gratitude for the job that they do. Here's what I see this passage ultimately coming down to. No matter where we're at in our lives, God has placed us in our current life stage to learn something. Wherever you're at, you're there to learn something. We were a child before we became a parent, so we could look back on our childhood and make decisions about how we want to parent. Usually, you're an employee before you have the chance to be an employer. So you can look back at your jobs and decide how you want to lead them as an employer. God doesn't just want us to look back at these roles as stepping stones to get to where we're at. He doesn't want us to keep these roles in its own box as an employee and then make a new box to be an employer, or as a child and one thing, as a parent and another. That's why at the end of Ephesians 5, he takes the husband and the wife role and he shows us that the husband and wife role is supposed to be Jesus to the church. It's supposed to mimic that. It's supposed to look like that. It's supposed to reflect that. And it's no different when it becomes the parent to the child. It's supposed to mimic Jesus to the church. It's no different when it comes to the employer or the employee. It's supposed to be the same relationship that Jesus is to the church. We're supposed to mimic it. As parents, we don't exasperate our children the same way that Jesus does not exasperate us. I'm running out of time, but I still feel like I need to share this. This is one of the hardest things in the world for me right now. My first reaction to Ava and Ella when they don't listen or when they're acting up, when they're punching each other or whatever, is I get angry. I get angry and I want to start yelling at them to just knock it off. Like, what are you doing? Because I know that they know better. I know that we've taught them not to do that. But I have to be careful. Like I said, they're only 6 and 4. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to have times when they just don't listen. What I have to remember is I know the things that I'm supposed to do too. I know the things that I'm not supposed to do. But day after day, I continue to mess up. God continues to be patient with me. God continues to love me. He continues to teach me, and he continues to lead me. And so now I've expressed to my wife, and I've thought about it for quite some time, when I'm disciplining Ava and Ella, I have to think about the way that God leads me. Not only am I trying to make sure that they're ready to be adults when they finish school, when they're supposed to be adults, when they start to work for a living, I'm trying to show them the love of Christ through the way that I treat them, the way that I lead them, the way that I teach them right from wrong. And at this point, I don't feel like I've done a very good job. And I don't say that so you can come up and tell me how good of a parent I am. I say that because that's for real, because you don't really know me. You don't see me at home. You don't know. I need to do better. The next time that you're ready to yell at your kids, stop and think. Is this the way Jesus handles me? Is this the way that Jesus would handle them? Because that's the relationship that he expects you to have with them. It's the same thing for work. As employees, we're supposed to be working for Jesus. As employers, we're supposed to be showing our employees who Jesus is through the way that we lead. Because no matter who you're leading, the value for your company, the value for your organization is shown through the way that you value your people. So we have to treat people as valuable. I'll finish with this. God sees the same value in all of us. He says it at the end of this section that we read. Whether you're a slave or free, whether you're the parent or the child, whether you're the master, it doesn't matter. In God's eyes, there is no favoritism. And so each of us have the same value. Whether you've screwed up a bunch in your life or you feel like you followed the path pretty straight, it doesn't matter. I've seen people over and over again take out a $20 bill and start just crumpling it up and stepping on it, and then they pull it back up and they're like, how much is the 20 worth? It's still worth 20. Doesn't matter. And no matter what you've been through, no matter how messed up your life has been, the same value is on you, whether you're broken, whether you've come to Christ, it doesn't matter. God still sees you as valuable, the same that you were when you were born. And he wants us to turn to him. He wants us to come to him. He wants us to come to him and ask us, or he wants us to go to him and ask him to carry us. There was a Rob Bell Numa video that came out a long time ago. I'll never forget it because he's on a hike with his son. And while he's out on the hike, it starts raining and starts storming. He's got his son in a pack on his back, and he hears his son start crying. And so he takes him out of the pack, and he just holds him, and he continues to hike back to the cabin that they're staying in, and he keeps whispering in his son's ear, telling him, "You're all right, buddy. It's going to be okay. Daddy's got you." And that's what God wants to do for us every day. So just hold us and tell us, it's all right. It's going to be okay. I know you're dealing with this, and I know you're dealing with that, but it's all right, buddy. I got you. It's all right. You're going to be okay. Ella will still walk up to Megan and I. She'll stand at our feet, and she'll hold her arms up, and she'll just say, "Uppy, uppy." And she wants us to hold her. And there's times when I don't want to. There's times when I've got my own stuff to do, and I don't have time just to hold you, Ella. But God is never going to not pick you up. Ella wakes up some mornings, and she'll be in her bed still. She won't get out of her bed. She'll just yell for us. Yeah, she makes us come in her room. But she'll yell, "Mommy or Daddy, I need you." And I can still hear it. "Mommy, I need you." She doesn't really need us in that moment. But the first thing that she thinks about when she wakes up is that she needs us. What if we did that? What if we woke up every day and said, "God, I need you"? God wants to pick us up. He wants to tell us over and over and over again, "You're all right. It's going to be okay." But you got to let him pick you up. You got to let him hold you. You got to let him carry you through the storms of this life. You can't do it on your own. And so maybe today you've given your life to him and you've asked him to pick you up before, but a long time ago you told him to put you down and you walked away. Maybe you just need to come back and say, "I'm sorry, God, pick me up." Maybe you've never made that decision to ask God to carry you. Every day you have that chance to come to him and say, "God, I need you. Pick me up." Maybe you're just dealing with something right now, and it's beyond what you can hear him telling you it's going to be okay right now. Like you just can't hear it, and you need somebody to pray with you or somebody to talk to. We're going to have people up here that you can come talk to, or people in the back that you can go back there and they'll pray with you. We don't want you to leave here today without having that opportunity to make a decision to let God pick you up and carry you through whatever you're going through in life. So I'm going to pray, and our worship team's going to come, and they're going to play a song. And during that song, while you're standing there, if you need to step out of your row and go talk to somebody, go talk to somebody. We're all in the same boat. There is nobody that's better off than anybody else. I love that God puts it that way, that Paul puts it that way at the end of this passage. There is no favoritism. Nobody is better than the other. No matter what your job is here, it's temporary. Would you stand with me and let's pray, and we'll have our decision song. God, we come to you right now, and I know that there are times in life where we do things that seem like are out of our character, that seem like that's not who we really are, God, but we know that we are broken, and we need healing, and that healing comes from you. So God, today I pray that if there's somebody that's thinking about asking you to pick them up, that they let you. They come at your feet and they look up to you and they just put their hands up and say, "Up, I need up." And God, I pray for those that have made that decision before but have walked away. They've kicked and screamed, so you put them down and let them go. I pray for those that have made that decision. I pray that they come back, that they give their lives to you. God, for those that are dealing with difficult things in their life right now, storms of life, I pray that They see that the relationships they have within the church are there for a reason. They are sacred relationships that you have given them to get through these storms. And so I pray that we use them. We go to one another and ask for prayer. We ask because we know we can't do this on our own. We are not capable. You've made us to be in relationship. God, I pray for all these things that we've talked about today, that we walk out and we are not the same person because we realize how much we need you. How much we need you to be the good parent, to be the good child, to be the good employee or the employer. And we can't do it on our own with our own will because we'll continue to fail over and over and over again. I pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.